Welcome, everyone. My name is Paul Fagan. I'm the Senior Director for the Human Rights and Democracy Programs here at the McCain Institute for International Leadership. We are so pleased today to have Mr. Bobi Wine, the Honorable Bobi Wine from Uganda, who has been leading Uganda's opposition, ran for president recently under very difficult circumstances. So we're very pleased to have him here and share his thoughts on Uganda and where things are headed. So with that, Bobi, it's great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Paul, for having me. Although while introducing me, I didn't hear you say ran for president, won the election, but was not announced.
Yes, it's been a very controversial election, and I believe a lot of outsiders believe that you won that election. Let me, speaking of democracy, speaking of elections, the Sedona Forum this year, our theme is defending democracy. So why is it important for you to continue to defend democracy and freedom in Uganda today?
Thank you, Paul. Indeed, democracy is under vicious attack. Democracy is under attack in Uganda, and I believe in many other places. And democracy needs to be defended. Uganda went to elections in 1980, and an election was stolen, and that provoked General Museveni and many other young men of the time to pick up arms and started a civil war which consumed more than 500,000 Ugandans. And what caused him to do that is the fact that he claimed to be fighting to restore democracy. And indeed, there was a semblance of democracy restored when we had a constitution in 1995. However, it has constantly been abused by the man himself, General Museveni, who once said he's fighting for democracy. And that becomes a duty for every Ugandan now to fight and defend democracy, at least to turn the word into action. Because according to our constitution, democracy is provided for, but unfortunately, democracy is not represented and is not respected. And a clear evidence of the same is the recently concluded general election here in Uganda. We continue to fight to defend democracy because we know that the majority of Ugandans, those that don't carry guns, those that are not blessed enough to be born in rich families, can only survive when there is democracy, can only have a future to speak of when there is democracy.
You paint a very dire picture of Uganda. As we said in the beginning, you ran for president, possibly likely won. Prior to the election, you've been arrested, you've been under house arrest, house detention, you've been tortured. How do you sustain your optimism and positive attitude in the face of such adversity?
Yeah, Paul, much as so much I and the people working close with me go through, the ordinary Ugandan goes through much worse. Mm-hmm. So what keeps us going is the fact that people are resilient. It's not only me, but people are equally resilient. Everywhere we pass, we hear words of encouragement from the people of Uganda. It is unprecedented. It has not been like this before, and that encourages us. And also the knowledge that what we are standing for is moral, and it is right. It is right before the law. It is right before the people of Uganda and all humanity. And we also believe that it's right before God. So that alone keeps us going, knowing that at least good will always prevail over evil.
Let me ask you about your leadership journey. As many people in our audience might not know you as well as many of us do, you're a musician. You came, you're a very famous musician in Uganda, throughout Africa.
Thank you.
Why change direction, or have you changed direction from being a musician to a politician?
Thank you very much. I'm glad you changed the question, because the why change direction question is not for me. I've not changed any direction. Mm-hmm. I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I'm an activist. But before all of that, I'm a Ugandan, I'm a citizen, and I'm a taxpayer, and now I'm a parent, and I'm responsible for my rights and the rights of those that come before me. So it's everybody's responsibility. But again, looking at those that we always looked up to, the intellectuals of this world, to rise to the occasion and take the responsibility of guiding us to where we believe we should be in the 21st century. It was not happening because what General Museveni did is to crush the intellectual class, because that is the class that was expected to stand up to his dictatorship. Many intellectuals are either compromised or crushed completely. Many of them have run out of the country. They're exiles, either political or economic exiles. They left the country because the country could not provide, for their full potential, for what they felt they desired. They left because they feel their first world brains stuck in the third world country. They left because they were not enjoying their rights as human beings, as people. So all that affected us, and we had a deficit of leadership. But because the challenges were many and they were affecting us mainly, we the common people, I saw it important not only to preach what I'd been preaching all along, calling on young people to get actively involved in their politics, in their decision making, and the setting of their future. But it was important for me to get involved myself, not to explain, but to demonstrate. And that's what called me to take part in this. But I'm still a musician. And in the same breath, I've been encouraging the doctors, the lawyers, the taxi drivers, the farmers, all citizens to get actively involved. That's the only way we are going to connect the gap. And I'm very glad that at least the young people of Uganda, who are the majority, by the way, Uganda being the second youngest country in the world, where we have more than 85% of our population under the age of 35, and we have a population of over 45 million Ugandans. So I'm glad that now the people of Uganda are more connected, they're more demanding, they're more agitating. That's why you've seen more violence, more brutality, more impunity, because the regime is scared. It is not only me changing direction, but it's all of us as a generation changing and focusing on what we should focus on, measuring on majors and minoring on minors.
I would also say that there's more peaceful protests, right? You and your followers are following in the footsteps of Martin Luther King, Gandhi, and others who have persevered in the face of adversity and violence from their oppressors. So I would want to highlight what you and your followers are doing or trying to do is trying to, go about this in a peaceful manner, correct?
Certainly, we are going about everything in a peaceful manner and legal manner, well knowing that violence has only begotten violence historically, and also knowing that those that rule over us used violence to take over power, and they've used extreme violence to maintain the power. And there is violence that they use to respond to every peaceful and logical argument that we raise, trying as much as possible to depict us as violence so that they can justify their use of violence to us. But we have constantly called on people, especially the young people, to be non-violent, but to be assertive. We strongly believe that violence can outweigh, that non-violence can outweigh violence. Of course, it's been such a challenge because the regime in Uganda responds to every argument, no matter how non-violent it is, with extreme violence. But we have persisted and insisted that we are non-violent, and indeed, it is the non-violence that is exposing the regime in Uganda, although we are facing lots of fatalities, deaths, and broken limbs and the like.
Yeah, from, not only following your Twitter feed, but stories about Uganda, you see the repressive tactics, the responses from the military, from the police, the security forces, and it's brutal. It truly is brutal, which leads to a couple of questions about the current support of this regime from outside. For a long time, President Museveni has enjoyed the support of international donors, the United States, Europe, regional players, because of different positions, whether it's his role in the conflict in Sudan, South Sudan, the conflict in Somalia, his response to AIDS, the AIDS pandemic. What would you say to the world today, the leaders of today, our country and others, multilateral institutions, why, they should support the people of Uganda over prioritizing sort of what they call stability of Museveni?
First of all, I'll say General Museveni has been very smart in the past. He has been able to hoodwink the Western community, the development partners, and most importantly, the United States. He has presented himself as a Democrat. And every once in a while, when the international community has actually come to understand Museveni's deceitfulness, he has also successfully blackmailed them with what he claims as being the anchor of stability in the Great Lakes region, blackmailed them with his contribution of Uganda in the fight against terrorism, and also the accommodation of refugees. General Museveni indeed receives the biggest military aid budget in sub-Saharan Africa. This, however, is being used to oppress the people of Uganda instead, because he has not been questioned, because he has put a deceitful picture. The international community has in the past gone ahead to hobnob with General Museveni and to cooperate with him. However, this time, having successfully exposed General Museveni to the entire world, we believe that he cannot lie to the development partners. We strongly believe that whoever decides to work with General Museveni is going to do that out of full knowledge of the person that they are dealing with. In the past, it has been embarrassing for known democracies to be seen to work with known autocratic regimes and dictators. General Museveni has just stolen an election. He just cut off the entire internet, massacred people more than once, more than twice, more than thrice. General Museveni has just blocked all journalists from showing what is happening on the ground, and indeed blocked election observers from the European Union and United States, and done all kinds of impunity and electoral irregularities. The international community has watched him. We only look to see if they will continue to come off as partners in crime with General Museveni. We have, of course, raised our pleas to the international community, the European Union and the United States in particular, requesting them to make the observation of the rule of law and respect for human rights and respect for democracy as a precondition for cooperation with Uganda, because that is the only way we can also feel safe as members of the international community. Other than that, Ugandans are continuously being butchered by a general that is being bankrolled by the United States and other development partners. We would love to only get support for them from the international community, moral support, demanding of what is right, blocking outright massacre of innocent and armed civilians, which is actually going on in Uganda unabated.
You really touched on that point of the international community and the United States. We do have a new U.S. administration here under the leadership of President Biden and Secretary Blinken. What would you say to them specifically? What kind of support do you want? What do you want for the Uganda people from this administration?
Thank you. First of all, on behalf of the people of Uganda, we want to extend our appreciation for the constant call out on the regime in Uganda whenever they've abused the rights of the people. And the United States has recently called for an audit into the January 2021 election in Uganda, and we appreciate that. We request that the United States continue supporting the people of Uganda in their pursuit for democracy, in their pursuit for electoral justice, in their pursuit in having their voice respected by those that hold the guns, by calling on General Museveni to stop the abduction of the people of Uganda. Right now, as we speak, Ugandans are being abducted, tortured, some extrajudiciary executed with no question. Knowing that the United States is a world's leading democracy, we would request that before any kind of military cooperation or otherwise, a precondition of respect of human rights, a precondition of respect for democracy, for example, in particular, constantly calling for the audit into the January 2021 election, which was clearly rigged, and it would break the hearts of the people of Uganda to see the United States having business as usual with a person that has abused rights with reckless abandon, with a person that is not legitimate in the eyes of the people of Uganda.
Those are very strong words to this administration, and I hope it does get through to the highest levels of this administration, those words, because it's very important, because what we see in Uganda really shouldn't be happening. As you said, Uganda is one of the youngest nations in Africa. It has a growing, population. It's a center of education. There's so much potential there, and it seems to me from the outside that that potential is being suppressed. One last thing, we are the McCain Institute. We're named for the late Senator John McCain. He stood up for human rights activists around the world. It was something that he did, as a member of Congress. Congress has been, I think, a strong supporter of you, the people of Uganda, calling out the atrocities that have taken place. What can you say to even the members of Congress, many of who are gathered, for the Sedona Forum, as opposed to President Biden? What would you say to some of these senators and members of the House who focus on Africa?
Well, it's in our culture, first of all, to appreciate what has been done already, not only for those in Uganda, but all over the world. Our operation in Uganda has taught us to stand for all people all over the world that are going through the same. Now, I would repeat the same request to the congressmen and all the leaders that I would have opportunity to reach, to ask them not to turn their faces and backs on the people of Uganda. Dictatorships only survive when those that can call them to order keep silent. Democracy dies in silence, but when there's no silence, surely democracy will prevail. So we continue to reach out to them, to request them to help our democracy grow. We can only be better partners if we are better governed. The people of Uganda celebrate the relationship with the United States. We, as the people of Uganda, are committed to the fight against terror. We are committed to human rights all over the world. We are committed to betterment of humanity. And we want that to be universal. We want to be held to the values that we all espouse, and we would appreciate if we are matched, or if we are gauged by the same values that we all espouse. We look at the US as a more mature, a more grown democracy, and we hope it can hold General Museveni accountable. While we know that we learn and hope to develop our own democracy, we cannot do it alone. As we speak today, all the assistance that's being offered to Uganda for the betterment of the livelihood of the people of Uganda are actually being used to maintain one man in power. And it's only important that I say it black and white, that I say it in black and white before those that actually either knowingly or unknowingly are propping up and sustaining a dictator that is squeezing blood out of the people of Uganda.
Bobi, this essentially concludes our conversation today. I want to thank you on behalf of the McCain Institute, Mrs. McCain, the Sedona Forum, for your participation in our Defending Democracy Forum. You epitomize someone who is, putting country before yourself, before your party, before everything. You have sacrificed, and it is such an honor to have you here, to provide you with a global platform, hopefully, so your message continues to get out to those here in the United States and around the world. But I want to give you the last word, since you are fighting, you're in Uganda, you are peacefully trying to make a change in that country. What are your last words to our audience?
Well, I would tell them that just like many parts of the world that are still not free, that are still under subjugation, that are still under dictatorship, Uganda, a country of 45 million people, is still grappling under the yoke of oppression by General Museveni. We have been enslaved on our own land for the last 35 years, ruled under the barrel of the gun. It is unfortunate that sometimes dictators have been either ignored or supported. However, we continue to call upon all good-willed people to stand with the people of Uganda in our bid to democratization. We are first world people, not stuck in a third world country, but stuck with third world leaders.
Thank you for that, Bobi. We appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you, Paul.